Hi there. I'd like to share some brief words of Torah with you about this week's Parshat, Parshat Korach. And I want to talk about leadership. Historically speaking, people become leaders based upon what? Either they're born into it, or they've killed out all the competition, or they're voted into it perhaps. What do you think, what system do you think would produce the best leaders? This week's Parsha, you see an idea that really none of these three systems perhaps are optimal, and yet from the Torah's perspective, we're actually born into it, and at least within a specific realm. Dictators or people that are leaders based upon their power and how much influence they have, by default, they're very, very subjective to their own personal causes. And the risk factors involved in whether or not their leadership is going to be successful in terms of leading the community is how much can they shunt their own selves aside and focus on the needs of the community. But the problem is that people tend to be very subjective because they're only human. And what happens is their influence, whether it's through nepotism or through protectia or through power or through money, very often they end up corrupt. And this, of course, is a very negative view of leaders in our past, or I should say in the past. This week's Parsha is really about a struggle. Who's going to lead the nation? Korach, Moshe and Aaron? That's what this fight is really about. Is Moshe indeed the divine leader, the leader appointed by God, and Aaron his brother as well? And that's the conversation, that is the back and forth that takes place in our Parsha. However, at the end of the Parsha, once we see that in fact, Moshe and Aaron are approved and reaffirmed by God as being his true leaders of the people, the Parsha spends a significant amount of time discussing the various gifts associated with the kahuna, with the priests. And it goes into some detail in describing the purpose of the Levites, of the Leviim. And it says that their function is la'avod et avodat mishkan Hashem, to serve the service of the tabernacle of God. V'la'amod lefnei ha'edah l'sharitam, and to stand in front of the community and to serve them. Rabbi Hirsch, the great German rabbi, points something out, a fascinating idea. He says, technically speaking, the avodat mishkan Hashem, the service of the Mishkan, is the service of erecting, maintaining, protecting, and transporting the sanctuary and all of its contents. At the same time, he says, what's it called? It's called an avoda. It's called a service. Why? Because it is a service that is rendered in the service of the nation. In the course of which they stand, l'fnei ha'edah l'sharsam, this entire relationship that they have to the Mishkan is not because of anything great that they are per se, but rather it's in the service of the people, because the Mishkan stands there to benefit the people. It's really the task of the entire nation, and they're doing it on behalf of the entire nation. He continues, and I'll quote directly because the words are so powerful. In Jewish thought, public office dignifies the server because it entails service of the community. The bearer of the office does not control others, he serves them. This is a completely different paradigm of leadership than the first one I introduced on this video. The dignity of the public service lies in the fact that the individual is imbued with the idea of the community and its purposes, which he promotes in the spirit of the community and from its standpoint, which means that his own subjectivity plays no role in the service. Rather, he represents the community utterly and completely. With that, I want to wish you a Shabbat Shalom, and I hope that we all merit leaders who indeed represent the community and not just their own self-interest. Shabbat Shalom.